Hello all and welcome to this webinar and thank you for joining. My name is Bas Hoksberg and I'll be your host today. My colleague Ryan Sainsbury will be presenting this webinar. We expect this webinar to take about 30 minutes. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A or the chat buttons at the bottom of your screen to get in touch. We might answer the questions on the fly or at the end of this webinar. I see a nice list of attendees. Quite some people I think I know from the past, so nice to see you here again. We hope we can make this interesting for all of you. Without further ado, let's get started.
Thank you very much, Baz. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. Just one second. Hello, welcome. My name's Ryan Sainsbury. I'm a technical project specialist for Pharos Architectural Controls. Today we're going to be going through a typical VLC project walkthrough. So hopefully by doing that, I can show you a couple of things to speed up your workflow and just get you customized with some of the features that you would typically use with a VLC within Designer. So we're going to be looking at the following things in today's webinar: creating fixture templates, how you can auto patch those templates, basic mapping, and also how you can utilize the live video DVI input on the VLC, and also how you can trigger a backup timeline that's stored on the VLC should your video link go down or cut out for some reason. Also, I want to show you some other features as well later on in the webinar, which is going to help you, again, improve your workflow, importing CSV files to help you create a layout and create a patch, and then also some features that will let you adjust the content target, which is where you're going to map your media content to. So this webinar is going to be split into kind of two rounds, two sections. The first thing that I want to do is just go through a project file with you. That's going to help you get set up with the VLC in the quickest, most simplest way. And then again, as I said, I'm going to show you some really cool features that we have as well. So in order to do that, I've just set up a really basic project file specification. So let's imagine that we have a media facade and that our end user just wants to map some live video to that media. So they've got a media device of some kind that's plugged into the back of the VLC via its DVI input, and then we want to map that in real time. They also want to have some backup media should anything go wrong with the media device, the media server, just so that Pharos just can put something up in case that happens. And then finally, they want to just reduce the facade brightness as ambient lux levels drop, and obviously make it brighter as the lux levels go up again. So the first thing that we're going to look at doing today, just starting off with a very basic project file. When you open up Designer, hit new project as always, and then just go ahead and select the controller you want to work with, in this case, a VLC. As soon as you do that, you'll be presented with the VLC layout. It's a little bit different from the typical layout. It can be a lot bigger. Also, fixtures are treated more like pixels. But you will have access to most of our fixtures within the right-hand side. These will just be your kind of LED types of fixtures. Obviously, the VLC won't work with moving heads. First thing you might want to do, though, is you might want to set up something called a fixture template. Now, this is really going to improve your workflow. If you imagine you've got maybe some panels for your media facade, maybe you've got some linear fixtures, rather than just putting on each individual LED, what you can do is you can create a fixture template, which is effectively can act like your media panel or your linear fixture. And that's really simple to do within our software. First of all, just go ahead and select the LED type that you're working with. So today I'm just going to be working with pretty standard LEDs, an RGBW LED. Right click on it, go to the bottom, and you'll see there's an option for create fixture template. If you go ahead and select that, you'll have the fixture template creator open up. First thing you want to do, just give it a new name. You can also select a different different LED type if you want to, but RGBW is fine for now. So I'm just going to go ahead, click next, and then you'll be presented with this window. So first thing you can do is you can obviously adjust the width and the height of the fixture template that you want. So today I'm going to be working with kind of standard media panels. What I'm going to go ahead and do here is I'm just going to adjust this to 11 by 11, giving me pretty much a full universe on one media panel. There are some other options that you may want to consider. First of all, the flow, which is essentially how the LEDs are wired and how the addressing will run. So as you can see here, we've got four options for that. You can make it horizontal, vertical, or you can and you can do that for both a snaking and a parallel pattern. The snaking pattern is shown on the screen at the moment. but of course you can choose any one that you want just to adjust to your liking. You can also adjust where the fixture where the run of your LED starts. So at the moment it's in the top right hand corner, but if you want to change it to something like the bottom right, you certainly can do that as well. You can also put a gap in there so you can space it out so you can have a slightly bigger pixel pitch. And then if you want to, there's also other options so you can put an offset in there, and then you can also adjust some of the other parameters such as the stride as well. So for now, I'm happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and click next. The next option that you'll get is to create multiple patch points if you want to. So if you do want to create a media panel that spreads over 2 universes, you can put 2 patch points in there. Always useful if you wanted to, but for now, I'm just going to just use 1 patch point. And you can also put a patch spacing in there, which is like a patch gap. For now, though, I'm happy with that. Go ahead, click finish. You'll get a little message just to say that your library's been updated. And then when you go to the top, you'll now have a little folder called templates. You can go ahead and select the fixture template that you've just created. Go ahead and just drag that and drop that onto your background. And there you go. You've got a nice fixture template, which will act as a media panel or whatever you decided to create. Now, you can, again, really improve your workflow by using Faris's auto patch feature. You can do this when duplicating fixtures. So if you know that you're going to be using, 20 or 30 of these fixture templates to build your media facade, go ahead and just duplicate them. Put in your necessary dimensions. So I'm going to use 16 by 9, just a typical kind of size for a media facade. And then click next, and then you'll have an option if you want to adjust the direction and the flow. As I've already set this up within the fixture properties, I'm going to pretty much keep everything the same, just so that everything has the same flow, so that all the fixtures are patched in the same order. Then I'm just going to go ahead and click next, and then it'll just finally ask me where I want to patch that. I'm going to patch that to my VLC, and then it's going to ask me, okay, what kind of protocol do you want to use? And today I'm just going to go with ArtNet. And also your starting universe, but I can leave that all as it is at the moment, and then just go ahead and click finish. You'll have your fixtures duplicated for you, and they'll obviously just be on your layout. Then if you go to your patch window and then just select the control and the protocol, you'll notice that all of your fixtures will just be automatically patched in for you. Obviously, this assumes that your fixtures are set up and they're addressed in the same way. Once you've done that, though, just go ahead and upload, and then you can obviously then just highlight them using the little bulb icon right at the top. So once you're happy with your patching, then we can come on to mapping our content. So this is the mapping window. It looks a little bit different when you're using a VLC. If people have used LPCs and they've created pixel matrices, it's a similar kind of concept, but it's a little bit different with the VLC. You have this blue area in front of you, which is called your content target. Essentially, this is where you're going to map your media, or you're going to map your effects to. The slightly more gray area in the background is where your fixtures are. You can move the content target around so that you can map specific parts of the content target onto your media, onto your layout rather. But if for a really simple, nice user case, probably what you're going to want to do is just have your content target snap to the size of your fixture layout. And you can do that by hitting the fit to fixtures. And that's just going to then go ahead and snap that content target to the size of your layout. And obviously when you map media or you map dynamic effects to that content target, it's just going to then map that to your fixtures. You can also import media content. I've just got some basic media content that I've brought in. This is going to act as my backup content for if my live video feed was to go down. So you can obviously bring that in via here. And then finally, you can also see the details of your media content as well. So its resolution, how many frames per second it is, which is detailed in the top right-hand corner. So now I want to go ahead and I want to create timelines. So the first thing that we're going to have to do is create a timeline for our live video input. Okay, so in order to do this in Faris, it's really nice and easy. You go to the effect library, which is shown on the top right-hand corner. And the first thing that you'll see right at the bottom is that there is a live video preset. We just want to go ahead and drop that onto our timeline as shown above. And then finally, you may want to select the holder end option just so that live video preset just continuously plays. So I'm going to go ahead, select holder end. And then I'm just going to rename it here as well. Also, in the bottom right-hand corner, you do have your kind of standard properties. So you can have, obviously, like a fade and release time, but then you also have options to crop the media content as well. But once I'm done creating that, I'm happy with that, and I can go ahead and then I can create a new timeline. So this is now going to be my next timeline, which I'm going to create for my backup media content. So I'm going to go to my media content in the top right-hand corner. I'm just going to go ahead and get the media that I've imported, and then I'm just going to drop that onto a timeline. Just so you're aware, media content, when you bring it into Designer, when you do an upload, it's obviously stored on the VLC. It's played back directly from the VLC. So that's why it works really well as a kind of backup system. Obviously, because that's stored locally, should the video feed cut, all of the data that you need, all of the media content stored in the VLC, and it'll just go ahead and then it'll just play it back. So that'll be uploaded when I do my next upload to the controller. Now I want to have a quick look at the triggering that you might want to use for this kind of typical scenario. So first thing you want to do is you're going to want to start your live video playback timeline. You can do this pretty much any way that you desired. I'm just going to go with a startup trigger now, but of course it could be a real-time trigger, an astronomical trigger. It could be like a TPC button press, for instance. But for now, I'm just going to use the startup trigger. Really nice and simple. It will play on startup. So as you probably imagined, you need to start a timeline. Just go ahead and pick your live video timeline with the live video preset on it. Just make sure that that's selected. And now we need to put in the programming that's going to initiate the backup media should the live video drop. Again, I'm going to create a new trigger, but this time the trigger that I'm going to use is going to be the live video signal trigger. Once you select this in the top right-hand corner, what you'll notice is you have an event, and the two events are signal lost and signal found. First one will be signal lost. Go ahead and select that. And then once you've done that, you can then go ahead and apply some actions to it. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to do a release all action. Now, this is optional, but seeing as we are treating this media facade as just one area where we are going to continuously map media content or video content to that area, and obviously there's no other playback going on outside that, not that we would probably do that with VLC, but because that we can always release any previous playback. If you don't release playback, what happens is every single time you select a new timeline, that will obviously then come on stage. All of the previous timelines will keep running, but they will be then running inactive, which means that they will be running in the background, but you obviously just won't see their output. Now, that's fine. The VLC is a pretty powerful machine, but obviously you always want to keep your programming as efficient as possible. So it's always good just to release any previous playback. That means nothing else is playing in the system, and then you just start a new timeline, as we're obviously going to be playing just one scene at any time. So I'm going to go ahead, select the release all. That can just be set to all, and you can have a little release time on that if you want to fade it. And then finally, I'm going to select my backup media content, and that backup media content will obviously kick in as soon as that trigger then fires. One other thing that you might want to do as well, you may, if the media system comes back online, you may obviously want it to then go and output its live video feed again. You can do that again using the same trigger, but just by changing the event from signal lost to signal found. Also, you can, of course, just release all again, just to make sure, again, you've cleared out any previous lighting scenes that are not playing. And of course, finally, just start the timeline just in order to get that live preset back up and running. So that's the real simplicity of it all. Really, really nice and easy just to get you guys up to speed with the VLC and get you guys up and running. So hopefully now that'll give you an idea of how you can set up your show file in a nice, simple way. But there are some other features that you might want to use in order to, again, speed up your workflow. CSV files can be really, really useful for creating layouts and backgrounds. So effectively, a CSV file is a comma separated file that you can open and edit in something like Excel, which obviously handles that type of data very, very well. And by easily adjusting and editing that data, it can be a very, very powerful exercise if you need to then obviously pull that back into your layout. I'll give you a little bit of a demonstration as to what I mean. I've got a project file here with some quite complex shapes in. We've obviously got this these spokes, and then we've got the little areas just outside of the wheel. I can pull in a CSV file that I've made previously by going to the top right hand corner, import object. This is then going to create my layout. So go to the top left-hand corner, click Fixtures, click on the blue folder icon to find your file, and then you can import your CSV file, and that will create your layout. So typically, this is what a CSV file looks like. To start off on the left-hand side, we have obviously the fixture number. Each fixture number needs to be unique within Designer. And then we have a manufacturer ID, a model ID, and a mode ID. Manufacturer ID basically just tells our fixture library, okay, we want that manufacturer. A model ID then tells Designer, okay, we want that model from that manufacturer. And then finally, the mode just signifies what mode the fixture we want to use is. We've obviously then got width and height. That can pretty much be set to 1 because you want it set to 1 for the VLC backgrounds. And then you have an X and Y coordinate, and obviously that's its position. We now allow you to support 2 decimal points within the VLC layout, so that gives you a high degree of accuracy. And then finally, you've got your angle, which is obviously just its rotation. You can actually get a lot of CSV files from other programs such as Autodesk. We've got some great tutorials on how to work with larger project files if you're interested in that type of thing on our website. But just know that you can get most of this CSV file information if you're working with an architectural design firm or similar. So I'm happy with that. Looks good. I can then go ahead and I can pull that into my Designer file. So just go ahead and click Open. Click Next. It'll give you a quick preview of what the information, the data that you're bringing in. Again, all looks good. I'm happy with it, so I can go ahead and then just click Next. Once I've done that, it'll ask me what controller or what layout I want to bring it onto. Again, I can just go ahead and click Finish. And hopefully, if it's been done correctly, you should have no errors, and it'll just tell you how many fixtures that you've imported. Go ahead and bring it in. And then, of course, you can then see all of the fixtures have been brought into place in the correct area. And again, just a really nice, easy way of working with really big projects that have lots and lots of fixtures. The other benefit to this as well is if there is some error, it's really, really easy just to go back into Excel, adjust it, and then bring it back in again. So yeah, really nice thing to bring up, improve your workflow. So once I'm happy with that, I can then go on to patching my fixtures. Now, we can do pretty much exactly the same thing in terms of bringing in CSV files with patch data. Again, really, really easy to adjust should you need to within Excel. Again, top right-hand corner, import object. I'm going to go to patch this time. Once I've clicked that, I'll then go through pretty much exactly the same process of just finding that CSV file, making sure that the CSV file is looking correct, and then we can then just bring that into Designer. So the CSV file for patching is a little bit different. We've still got the fixture number, we've got a controller number, but we're also now introducing a protocol and a universe number. If you're using something like Kynet, you may have the power supply number and the IP address filled in as well. But the most important thing is just the channel, and the universe that we want to bring the fixtures into. So as you can see over here, we've got channels and universes, 2 columns separate for that, and that'll basically just patch that to the fixture number that's on the far left-hand side. All looks good. Go ahead, bring it in, and voila, there you go. Makes it very nice and easy, and I can just pull in that patch data to speed things up a little bit. So one of the other things that I wanted to show you as well is just some of the other content target properties that you may see in Designer when mapping media. The first thing that I want to talk about is something called the blur radius, which appears in the bottom right-hand corner down here. Now, the blur radius, this is really, really useful if you're working with media content. If you've ever mapped media content, especially if it's to a media facade that doesn't have a particularly high resolution, what you might noticed is around the edges of your media content, or wherever there's any kind of contrasting lines, you may, where it's moving, where it's jumping from pixel to pixel. Blurring is a really good feature to help with this, and it will make your media content look a lot more aesthetically pleasing. And what it will do is it will basically fade the edges, or blend rather. It will blend the edges together, just creating a slightly more softer look. Which again, can be particularly useful if you're working with media content with LED facade that doesn't have a massive resolution. In fact, it'll probably look better if you use it full stop. You can adjust this. It's on a scale from 0 to 8. That's how much blurring you want to put in. And what I've tried to do here is I've tried to make a video that just demonstrates this. So Obviously, we know that we're streaming this. We're streaming at the maximum resolution that we can. So hopefully this will become really apparent. You probably wouldn't want to use this for geometric shapes, but I've tried to go for something that demonstrates the concept as much as possible, rather than actually showing you a real life scenario here, because it would have been just a little bit too difficult to see. But on the left hand side we have the blurring, and on the right hand side we have the non-blurred effect. So this is just a 2D wave that I've just used this applied this blurring. This is a 2D wave effect with the content target using this feature. In the next video that's just coming up, you'll hopefully see that this is even more present. On the right hand side you can see kind of that stepping effect between the LEDs. On the left hand side you can see how it's nicely transitioning and moving. Just try and keep in mind that this is best used on media content, and obviously when you've got your media content and you've got all these contrasting layers, it will really help to kind of smooth over those edges and just aesthetically make your media content look a lot more pleasing to someone who's viewing it. We will of course have two options to transform the content target as well as the blur radius. We have the ability to mirror and flip the instance. Pretty self-explanatory as to what these do, but I thought I'd just give you an example anyway. So on the left is the original, on the right is the mirrored image. And then if I wanted to flip something, I can go ahead and I can quickly show you that as well. I've got some images lined up. You can select the flip instance property, and what that'll then do is obviously then just flip whatever content you've got playing on that content target. Okay, so the final thing that I wanted to show you today is just how you would go about adjusting ambient lux levels. So before we come onto this, I just want to talk a little bit about 16-bit dimming, which has now been introduced to the VLC, or I believe will be introduced to the VLC in our next major release, which is coming out soon. So 16-bit dimming is really, really useful for protecting your dynamic resolution at lower levels. So imagine if you're using 8-bit dimming. Obviously, when you pull that master intensity down, you have less resolution between your maximum output, which if you pull the master intensity down to. So between 0 and 5% on an 8-bit dimming, I believe you have about 20 or so steps. You can clearly see that on the images here, between 0 and 5%, when you're using 16-bit dimming, you have a lot more steps, a lot more dynamic resolution. So when you pull that master intensity right down for maybe, I don't know, a media facade that's shining at night, you can of course then just protect the dynamic resolution within your media content, just giving you again a better look. So if you wanted to set up, or if you wanted to utilize this within Designer, you can do so. I'm about to show you a I/O module that we've got coming to our system soon. Just so we're clear, this I/O module is still in beta. It's not been released. It's for a lux sensor that talks to Pharos via Modbus. The lux sensor is very sensitive, very good. We've been testing it out, but the I/O module itself may be subject to change in future versions. The lux sensor that I'm using as well is also RS485 based. It's important to remember that the VLC is only RS232 based, so you'll have to pull in a remote device to obviously utilize this. But what I hope to do is take a lux level reading from outside, and then using that lux level, I won't want to adjust my master intensity. You can do this by just obviously pulling in the I/O module, giving it a quick bit of configuration. You'll need to obviously, as I said, to pull in a remote device though, because it's RS485 based for this particular device. The VLC is RS232 only. But once you've brought that in, and once you've set up your remote device to obviously have the correct serial settings, you can then go ahead and utilize this I/O module. This I/O module, it actually polls this lux sensor that to get back master intensity levels, or to get back lux levels, which we want to then translate into a master intensity level. And you can do this just by setting up the configuration options as you've seen in the module there, and then finally just pulling in a trigger. And whenever the lux level changes, it will then produce a variable, and that variable then can be pumped into a master intensity action. You'll obviously just need to pick the master intensity action, and then you'll obviously need to set it up so that the variable sorry, the intensity value is set to variable number 1, and then possibly put a fade time in there as well. But that's really, really nice and easy. Obviously, we'll go off and poll that lux sensor. That lux sensor will then return a lux level, and then we'll obviously then translate that into a master intensity action as it's set up in a variable. Just so we're aware, a lot of the settings, like the bandwidth settings, are actually set up on the sensor itself. So there is a configuration that you will obviously need to do on that. In case you want to, change the upper and lower bandwidth, if you want to invert the intensity, so that when it's brighter, your master intensity gets brighter, etc., etc. Okay, so just want to finish off with a quick summary. Couple of things just to remember with this webinar. First of all, you can really speed up your workflow when you're working with a VLC and you're working with lots and lots of LEDs by using the following. Using fixture templates will, of course, just speed up your workflow instead of having to patch and work with single LEDs. Create a fixture template and obviously then utilize the auto patching feature as well. Pulling in CSV files, though, if you're working with really complex shapes, can be another way of quickly building layouts and improving workflow, especially when you come to then patch stuff, or if you need to then adjust your patch or your layout on the fly. It's really, really easy to do Excel, then just obviously bring that back in. You can map live video using the VLC. The VLC, as I've explained, has a DVI input. You just take a media server or your media content device, plug it in the back, create a live video preset for a timeline, start the timeline, away you go. You can also create a backup for it, just create some media content or a dynamic effect, upload that to the controller, just make sure you've got the triggering correct so that if the video feed is lost, that timeline will then start. You can obviously have, or you can improve the way that your content looks by using the blurring feature. That'll really nicely smooth the edges of any content that you've got. But you can also then adjust, to mirror it or to flip it should you need to. And then finally, one thing that you may want to think about doing is reducing facade brightness at night and then obviously raising it in the day. You can do that with Pharos by just integrating us with a simple sensor, setting up the sensor, returning the values. And of course, by doing so, you can obviously then control that brightness dynamically. And then just one other thing to kind of remember as well. This was obviously a VLC project walkthrough. It has a bigger brother, if you'd like to say. It has a VLC. There is a VLC Plus controller in our family line. This has even more features than the VLC and can do even more stuff. But really, it's out of the scope for this project file walkthrough. If you want to find out more information about what the VLC does as opposed to a standard VLC, we have a webinar that we did last year, which is the LPC versus VLC family webinar, which you can check out on our website at pharoscontrols.com. I see there are 1 or 2 questions, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to answer these. But if you do have any questions, obviously, please feel free to ask them now, and then I'll do my best to go through them. So I'm just going to go ahead and look at my first question here. It's from an anonymous person. A person has asked, not used the VLC yet, but can it take in NDI or web stream live feeds, or is it used via the DVI input? So my answer to that would be, well, it can take a DVI input, right? So a DVI input is a pretty standard video input. So theoretically speaking, if you had a device that could output video via DVI, you can plug that into the back of the VLC. Does it take NDI and web stream live feeds? No, it doesn't. Everything needs to go through the DVI input. But I think the point that I'm just trying to make is, because you've got that ability to obviously have that DVI input, there's nothing to stop you from using a PC or a very, a highly configurable media server or something similar to that. So that's the way that I would go about it. Just know that any video image, as long as it's under 1080 at 60 frames a second, will be accepted by the VLC. And obviously, by doing so, you can then just output that in real time.
Brian, I'd just like to add to this.
Yeah.
I would be interested to learn more about the use case for this NDI stream. I've seen this come up 1 or 2 more times, and your answer was spot on about what we currently do. Then again, of course, understanding for the possible future why a user might like to use NDI, what the use case is. I would be interested to learn more. can understand in the you'd like to ask your question anonymous, but if you can follow up after the webinar with me via training at Firewalls Control or support at Firewalls Control, I'm very much interested to learn more about this use case, where this question is coming from.
Yeah. So we've got a little bit more time. Is there anyone else that would like to ask any questions? If, as Baz said, though, if you do want to discuss potential upcoming projects outside of this, you can always email us at support@firewallscontrols.com, and we can obviously get back to you there. I think we're good. I don't see anyone asking any more questions. So I think for now, Baz, as long as there's nothing that you want to add, I think we're good.
I think so as well, Ryan. Let me just take over so we can round this up. Ryan, I'd like to thank you for this webinar, for this presentation. I think it was a very nice one. It helped to clarify a lot of things to me as well. So very much thank you for this. As Ryan mentioned as well, if you have questions, please just feel free to contact us via support@firewallscontrols.com. After this webinar, you might receive a small survey where you can provide feedback and suggest other topics for webinars. Your feedback is very much appreciated. With this, we'll be ending this webinar. I'd like to thank you for your attendance, and I hope to see you next time.